How are you, Bob?
Good. Always happy to be on with the voice of reason.
Now, wait a minute. That's a hashtag that I use.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. I think it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's brilliant. The voice of R-E-A-S-O-N.
Zun.
Right,
Right, exactly. Now, but Bob, that means you're on Twitter? Is that what that means? That you see this stuff
no,
on social media?
No,
Is that what that
no.
means?
Actually, it doesn't. But things somehow filter through the ether and randomly get to me.
Now, I imagine in your career, Bob, there have been people that did try to convince you to get on Twitter, correct? That conversation did happen. Somebody did say to you, "Hey, Bob, what if we open you an account or something like that?" I have to assume.
That conversation took place, I don't know, several years ago at NBC, where the idea, and I guess this is the idea everywhere, networks, local stations, hashtag something or other. You'll be in a hotel someplace on some assignment. You're in Cleveland, and somebody's reporting from the school board meeting,
Yes.
and it's like at Sally Jones.
Yes.
Well, I can't get enough of Sally Jones' thoughts. I just want to find out what's happening at the school board meeting. Plus, I can't even vote in Cleveland, but I think I'll follow Sally Jones.
Yes.
I might be a better person for that.
But
So I guess they want you to do it.
Sure.
And when they brought it up at this meeting at NBC,
how'd that go?
it was like, yeah, it was a non-starter.
It was a non-starter. Not at Bob Costas, because you could, you know how to communicate in probably this is back in the day. It was just a mere 140 characters. You can communicate in length or brevity. That's the soul of wit, as you know, Bob. So I'm.
That's Shakespearean on your part.
Thank you,
Rich,
sir.
About the brevity being the soul of wit.
Yes.
But as you know, the one thing I long for is even more exposure to the American public. I need more attention. I'm trying to build a career here, Rich. And as you know, in this world, largely because of the internet, anything you say, you could say, I think it would be a good idea to give milk to orphans. By the time that gets to the fourth or fifth iteration, it's been twisted into something that doesn't remotely resemble what you've actually said or what you actually believe. So if that's going to happen anyway, even in the normal established channels, why does a sane person want to expose themselves to even more of this insanity? By being on Twitter. So that they put something out there and 8 zillion people they've never met respond to it. And by the time it gets to the 15th or 16th person, forget about the 8 zillionth, it's a complete distortion of everything that you said. Why?
So you're saying there's a chance, Bob. You're saying there's a small infinitesimal chance. Like Jordan saying his chance of coming back many, many moons ago. Like that, pretty much.
I would think there was a much better chance of Jordan coming back. There's a much better chance of Michael Phelps all of a sudden deciding only months out, I'm going to swim in Tokyo. Much better chance.
Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's get into some of the matters at hand. We spoke at length about the Astros cheating scandal when it was in full bloom, with the commissioner's report being out there and everybody having been involved lost their jobs. If the commissioner could take a mulligan on it now that we've heard the players be so full-throated in their response, Bob, do you think what would that look like if Manfred was given a mulligan here? Same? Different?
I think the only possible thing would be to consider vacating the title or placing an asterisk next to it for 2017. His thinking was that there was no precedent for that people who even have a superficial understanding of baseball history know about the 1919 Black Sox. People have a mental asterisk alongside Barry Bonds and whomever else during the steroid era, no matter what the record book may say. That was his thinking. I don't think he anticipated, and maybe none of us did, the whirlwind of response once spring training began and once microphones were placed in front of those players. And I'm sure you've commented on this in the last few days yourself. During the steroid era, and we'd be naive to think it's completely gone, but it's greatly, greatly reduced because of testing and penalties. But at the height or depth, if you prefer, of the steroid era, players would mumble about it anonymously or off the record, or they'd speak in generalities. We need testing. But they never called individuals out. And I guess the reason is that every clubhouse had at least some PED users in it, whereas players as a group now feel that 29 teams were victims and the one team, the Astros, were the perpetrators. Whether that's exactly true or not, I think that's the general feeling. Then you throw in social media and a generation of players much more inclined to make their every thought public. You've got a different situation than just a generation ago. And so I guess the one thing that Manfred might consider if he could start over would be vacating the title or some kind of official indication that this championship in 2017 is tainted.
Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. When do you think they release the Red Sox report? I mean, that has to happen before opening day, right? I mean, we got to get that out of the way.
Here we are on Tuesday, and last week at his press conference, Manfred said by the end of next week, so that means in the next few days.
What do you think we'll glean? You got any best guess here? Best guess?
Well, Alex Cora has already gotten whacked. And the sense you get from the Red Sox, we'll see, the sense you get from the Red Sox is that the penalties on the team, they don't expect the penalties on the team to be all that great. Cora lost his job, probably related more to his role with the Astros in 2017. We'll see what happens. I just don't know what the evidence is that the commissioner's investigation has uncovered regarding the Red Sox, so I'm not going to speculate.
Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's now remove the baseball hat and put on, if you will, the basketball shoes. I don't know. That's just a terrible analogy or segue, but I just try to move to the fact that you spent many years.
Now, you're the one who wants the mulligan. Forget about Manfred.
All right, yeah. I'll call a 20-second timeout. I'm touching my shoulders right here, Bob. Your years of calling NBA on NBC and the years in which you watched Kobe Bryant perform in front of you. What were your thoughts on yesterday's Kobe Memorial here in Los Angeles?
I thought it was magnificent. Obviously, a sad occasion, but in a sense, it was an uplifting event. Everyone was pitch perfect. And it's one thing to have good intentions, but that was a beautifully produced memorial. And I say that with respect. The way they laid it out, the way each thing led seamlessly into the next. Everybody hit a different note, but they all hit notes perfectly. People are going to focus on Vanessa, of course, so heartfelt, and seeing Michael Jordan that way, with tears streaming down his face. I think that was as endearing as any of us have ever seen Michael Jordan. And, you know, we heard in the aftermath of his death, and also in the latter stages of his career and post-retirement, we heard about Kobe, the man in full, his wide range of interests, his desire to become good at things beyond basketball, his interest in women's sports, how giving he was as a friend and with charities, his devotion to his family. We heard about all those things as a generalization. But then when you watch this memorial yesterday, and everyone in their own way illustrated so authentically those varied aspects of Kobe's textured life and textured personality, that really brought it all home.
You got a good story, good Kobe story from when you were covering him, calling his games? Anything? First met him, Bob, in comparison to other?
You know, I knew him pretty well in the early stages of his career. When he broke in '96, the NBA was on NBC, and we had it through 2002. So we had it through the three consecutive Laker championships at the beginning of the century. I didn't cross paths with Kobe much at all in the last 15 years or so, but I interviewed him for the first time when he was 18 years old in 1996, and I was struck even then. I remember saying to people even then, this kid is so mature, he's so self-possessed, he's so different from many of his peers, and of course that's attributable to spending all that time in Italy, being the son of an NBA player. His whole background was different than most of his peers. And even then, I sensed in him an active intelligence and curiosity. He was 18 years old. He was asking me about broadcasting. He was asking me about the various things that I had done. I found him much more interesting than I thought he should have found me. But he was asking me questions off camera. And then as his career developed, and you've noticed this in athletes yourself, Rich, talent is one thing. Great talent is one thing. But there's an element of an athlete's character. I'm just talking about athletic character here, where somebody wants the ball or wants to be at bat in the most pressure-packed situations. When he was only 21, 22 years old, he was like that. Doug Collins and I were calling the NBA Finals in 2000 between the Lakers and Pacers. Game 4 in Indianapolis, Lakers up 2-1. If the Pacers win the game, obviously, the series is even, and Game 5 is in Indy. Late in the game, Shaq fouls out. The game goes to overtime. Kobe, who's 21, 22 at that point, just takes that game by the throat, just takes it over. And you can sense the presence in him, which went beyond talent. It's like, I was made for moments like this. And there are certain athletes who feel that way. I remember once asking Reggie Miller in an interview, what if you're having a bad night? What if you're 1 for 13 on three-pointers, and with 5 seconds to go, timeout, ball at half court, the ball's going to go in your hands. You're 1 for 13. What are you thinking? He said, I'm thinking I'm going to be 2 for 14. You have to have that kind of athletic courage or sense of yourself to rise to the occasion, as Kobe did so many times.
You know, and I mentioned it earlier on the show with Michael Wilbon, and also my cohort for the show for the day, who you know very, very well. Her name is Susie Schuster. She's right over there.
Sure. Yeah, I do know her well.
You know, pretty much. And I mentioned that, to me, the speaker that really hit me, outside of obviously his wife, was Michael Jordan. And the fact that when Kobe came into the league, he made no bones about wanting to be better than Jordan, and pretty much the whole world saying, yeah, right, good luck with that. And for Jordan to get up there and speak at his memorial, it just blew me away, Bob, that this was actually happening. And speaking of Kobe in that manner, I can't put it into words. I'm wondering if you could.
Well, as I said earlier, I think that was about as endearing as we've ever seen Michael Jordan in a public setting. And no one could deny how genuine, how authentic it was. There was a whole lot of grace at the Staples Center yesterday in various ways. And as I said earlier, I think when it was over with, from different directions, different aspects of his life and his relationships, people got a pretty good sense of Kobe Bryant, the man in full.
It was something else. And Suze, you were there yesterday, and you sensed the same thing as well, correct?
Yeah, we were all surprised.
Yeah.
We were surprised, Bob, at how tender Michael was, because he alluded to it in his speech that Kobe was annoying. He'd text him at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. But we saw a really tender side to Michael, and I wonder if it's from age, experience, the solemnity of it all, because it was, as big as the Staples Center was, Bob, it was so intimate on the floor there amongst the trainers who worked on him and the cohorts, the classmates, if you will, of Kobe Bryant, because really the NBA was his college. And we were all taken aback by this side of Michael, which, like I said, perhaps it's age, perhaps it's experience, perhaps it's watching somebody die before him that revered him. But it was a side of Michael that he doesn't let people see very often.
Yeah, and it was appropriate in this situation. I think it's all the things you cited, Susie, and it was intimate. It was intimate in a very large setting, just as you said. And this is only one small aspect of it, and it's not the most important aspect. But my sense is that Michael Jordan, who obviously is keenly intelligent and aware of what's going on around him, that as he's moved into his 50s and as he's matured, there'll always be some competitive fire, but that mellows a little bit. And he has every reason to feel fully secure in terms of his place in basketball history, in the history of sports. And this is a rough analogy. I knew Ted Williams very well toward the end of his life. And Ted was always very giving in his assessment of other players. You never felt as if he felt any need to remind anyone of what he had done. His place in history was set. And I sense in that little way that Michael is the same. His achievements are unassailable. His standing is unassailable. That allows you to be as generous as is appropriate to everyone else.
Well, Bob, I appreciate everything. As I now head off to an event, Susie, that we all know is an annual event for the National Football League. Many people think that my run is a tradition at the Combine, but there is a tradition few people know about. It's the moment I'm on the air, my phone buzzes, I look down, and it's a text from Bob Costas telling me how insightful he feels the Combine is and how informative it is and how the minutia is beyond appropriate. Bob, am I going to get that text?
Yeah.
This week?
Actually, the only thing I truly look forward to is
Bob.
your sprint. And your times have declined just a little bit. Overtime is to be expected.
Yes.
But apart from that,
Yes.
I live to see how some potential fifth-round draft choice out of Appalachian State negotiates those cones. To me, that is the pinnacle of sports excitement.
Yeah, because and you're on the edge of your seat when you text.
I am.
I can sense it. I can sense it. I read between the lines of that text about how you can't wait for the moment that the most arcane drill that used to be run back in the 50s is still being run in 2020 to try and determine somebody's ankle flexion as well as their, if you will, hand size potentially might factor into a game in week 13 in year 7 of their career, Bob, right?
Everyone knows that while the Combine is on, they are not to bother me. I have my meals brought in. In fact, I'm fed intravenously, so I have to get up.
I knew it, Bob. I knew it.
That's when Jill brings in the TV dinners.
That's right.
In the old-fashioned. Here you go, sweetheart. It's a Salisbury steak.
Hungry man dinner. How I love that Salisbury steak.
Take care of yourself, Bob. Really appreciate the call. We'll chat soon.
Bye, Rich. Bye, Susie.
You got it. It's Bob Costas, none other, right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.